Hi everyone and welcome to episode 6. This is a continuation of the previous video where we looked at applying rust and paint chipping. In this video we'll be applying grease and oil to the chassis components such as the transmission and the drive shafts. This is the completed chassis. It's 99% complete and you can see that we've now fitted all the rusty components as well as the drive shafts, and we've also applied rust and oil to specific places. The process of doing this and also creating metallic colors and textures is what we'll be looking at in this video. Again, I followed a number of steps. First is assembly and primer, always the first step. Next is a metal base color, followed by additional metal colors. We'll be applying graphite powder as a pigment just to enhance the metallic look of a drive shaft. We'll be sealing that in with clear coat, and finally we will be using oil paint to create an oily and greasy look. I'll be using these drive shafts as an example, and the first step is to coat them with a primer, in this case Vallejo's matte black acrylic primer. Once that is done, we're ready to start with the metallic process, turning this into metal. I'll be using alclad steel. I really love these paints. For anything metallic, I try to use alclad. They go into the airbrush straight out of the bottle. That's one of the nice things about them. And they apply very, very smoothly. Make sure that you apply them over a primer coat. Make sure that your part is prepared properly, because any imperfection, I guarantee you, will show through once the paint goes on. As you can see, it goes on very smoothly, very thin paint. Almost not suited to brush. This is for airbrush only. Next we'll be mixing a color, in this case oily steel and smoke, just to get a darker metallic color. I start off with a little bit of oily steel, and I'll be adding 1 or 2 drops of smoke. Again, there's not too much science to this. I just keep on adding color until I'm happy with the result. This is mixed together with some acrylic thinner. As you can see, we're getting closer to where we want to be. Perhaps a drop or 2 of black acrylic will also do the job. Vallejo black, I add a drop or 2 of this. Again, mix this thoroughly. Before this goes into the airbrush, I'll also need to add some airbrush flow improver from Vallejo, and perhaps also a drop or 2 of acrylic thinner, just to make sure that we have proper flow of paint through the airbrush. This looks about right. What I'm looking for is a darker metallic color. Next, I try to apply this very carefully to selected areas of the drive shaft, in this case the edges. I'm trying to achieve a modulation of airbrush colors, if you wish, just some darker and lighter metallic shades, in this case the steel, as well as the new darker shade of metallic color that I mixed up. To enhance the metallic look of the drive shaft, I'm going to use some graphite powder. Several manufacturers now make metal pigment that works in the same way, and we'll be applying it and polishing it over this drive shaft. We'll also need a brush to apply it with. We'll also need some cotton buds. I use these to put the graphite powder on the drive shaft and then polish it. The stuff's quite messy to use, so please use a metal tray to keep it from going everywhere on your desk. First, put some of the graphite powder in the tray. Again, making sure not to get the stuff all over your desk, because it will stain everything it touches. Use the cotton bud, and now lift some of the pigment onto the painted drive shaft part. You can already start to polish the graphite powder into the drive shaft, and you'll see as soon as you start polishing, it gets a very nice shiny metallic look to it, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Use the brush for some further polishing. You can even use your fingers, the aim being to get a very shiny polished look to the metal. And again, the same can be achieved with pigments. Finally, use some paper towel, just rub away the loose graphite powder, and there you go. Very realistic metallic finish. Here you can see the difference between a part that was polished with graphite powder and one that wasn't. To do weathering with oil, I'm using one of the oil paints from the Uptailing 502 Vehicle Weathering and Effects set. This is the paint called Engine Grease. We'll also be using their brand of odorless thinner. I start by squeezing out a little bit of the oil paint onto a cardboard pallet. Next, use a small brush, some of the odorless thinner, and then start applying the oil paint to the model. The aim here is to just first lay down paint in areas where oil would likely accumulate, in this case on a part of the transmission, into all the grooves in the metal. Doesn't matter if it's not completely neat and tidy at this stage. For the next stage, clean your brush, moisten the bristles with a little bit of odorless thinner, and now start working the oil paint into all the grooves and into all the detail on the model. You can see oil paint blends beautifully in this case. It's ideal for this purpose. Everywhere where we applied the oil paint, use the brush and the thinner to just spread it out and create the effect. Also keep in mind practical things like gravity. Engine oil will always flow downwards, so keep that in mind when you are creating this effect. I now use the cotton bud and I clean up any of the excess oil from the transmission, making sure that we only keep the oil into the grooves and the detail of the part. And there we go, a very realistic oily look to this part of the engine. All the chassis components have now been assembled, all the axles, all the drive shafts, and all that remains is to use the same technique and apply the oil paint to areas of the engine that will likely be leaking oil. And there we go, this is our final result, a very realistic looking truck chassis. We can now continue with the rest of the build. As always, the list of products that I used in this video and the previous, all the surface primers, the acrylic paints, the chipping products, as well as the Uptailing oil paints. Guys, you can follow the rest of the build on my Instagram. Looking forward to seeing you in the next video.